Welcome, friends out there in cyberspace, and welcome, Mr. Michael Rhodes.
Thank you very much, Sascha, and welcome to everyone.
Today's topic is the current earthquake in Syria and Turkey. Michael, do you want to start off? Where do we start off?
Well, I would like to start off by saying that I will give a metaphysical overview of it, because not everything is quite as it appears. Now, when you have a species like we have, about nearly 8 billion of us, probably a bit less now, but let's just take a figure around 8 billion of us. And I would say, sadly, about 95% of humanity doesn't know who it is or why it is. So here we are, we have the duality of being physical, personality, body, a three-dimensional level to us. And then we're also metaphysical, multi-dimensional beings occupying the same space. That body's simply bigger than this. So we are, in fact, metaphysical beings living a three-dimensional life. We're multi-dimensional beings living a three-dimensional life. And so what this causes overall is it disconnects us from each other and it disconnects us from nature. This is very evident by the way we treat each other and the planet. If we saw everybody as part of our personal family, well, on the other hand, that's probably not true, because the way we often treat each other in our personal families is disgusting. It's appalling. So basically, we each live isolated and alone in is known as an illusion. Now, this has an effect on the planet because all consciousness, everything is energy. Every human being is energy. All humanity is one energy. All nature is one energy, and the planet is one energy. The planet Earth, and all that is one single energy, and it's one consciousness. And so, up until about the beginning of the 19th century, we were under 1 billion of people. That didn't have a great impact on the planet. Mind you, the planet, which is a vast elemental being, has its own consciousness and goes through its own growth cycles. However, as we reached 8 billion people, then we began to have a major impact on the planet, on the consciousness of the whole. And so, now what is our consciousness? Our consciousness basically is one of aggression, anger, fear, survivalism, and all that adds up to a vast victim consciousness. Now, add to this, 92% of the human population lives in the northern hemisphere. So we have a vast congregation of energy at the higher in the one hemisphere. And now you get somewhere like Turkey and Syria. Turkey is a country tottering on the edge of poverty, close to warfare, a frightening place to live. And then you get the cities, and many of them been involved. For me, I'm sorry, but they all have unpronounceable names. I just don't speak Turkish. And all these cities are a conglomeration of people with victim consciousness. Now, let's just take a high rise. This could be anywhere in the world. So don't think I'm picking out Turkey and Syria. It's just happened that's where the earthquake was. And so let's say take any high multi-level apartment in the world where it goes up maybe 50 stories or more. All people living in there, families in each apartment. On odd occasions in small apartments, there's quite a good mutual energy between them. They know each other, but generally there is bad feeling in them. I've been in some of these to visit people, and there's grumbles about somebody had the blower out and was blowing leaves and all the dust came in my balcony and this and that. And everybody's got their gripes and grumbles about what's happening, the mismanagement, everything. And that creates a victim consciousness chaos. And this becomes concentrated in cities particularly because that's where the most people are. And that begins to have an effect on the tectonic plates of the earth. So they can move side by side like that, but in Turkey and Syria, one overrode the other. And so you get this massive earthquake. Now you could look at it, the whole thing, as a vast and terrible tragedy. And on a human level, purely, it is. And particularly if you believe in one life and that at the end of your life, you're dead forever. And on a physical linear level, yes, it's a tragedy. But on a metaphysical level, there's like a vast gathering of angels there, and there was a exodus of souls. Now, some small percentage, very small percentage, literally rose out of the rubble and just moved on and would probably incarnate directly into a higher, finer timeline. But most were unable to do this. So angels, which are not bothered by anything physical, concrete, simply lift the souls out. Some survive. Every human there has their own life story, and every human being had put them there for this event. You have to look at it in one simple way. Either you believe in separation and isolation, and everything and everybody is separate, in which case you have accidents. But if everything is one vast consciousness and everything connects, there can be no accidents. Everything is, I won't say preordained, I'll have to throw in this. On this planet, we are the only species of creation. We are creating. In every moment of your life, you are creating the content and direction of every moment of your life. So your life and your creation put you in Turkey and Syria for this or wherever. And I don't think this is going to be the last of these major earthquakes in city centres. I really don't. I think it's just beginning. That's the way I see it. I hope I'm wrong. And so we have this species that is deeply, deeply subconscious, deeply asleep, and it needs to wake up because this is the end of term examinations, and you have to be awake for your examination. And most of humanity is still sleeping soundly, still a major percentage. And so what you have to put in it is a colossal impact. And this affects every human being. You know, everybody begins to realize, well, this could happen where I live, in this city, and it could. And so it's a major impact. Now, we're in a situation where once upon a time, what I did in a certain village, nobody knew, or what happened in a certain city, nobody knew. But now with internet, everybody knows. And so all over the world, the fear level has gone up by a huge percentage. And our fear and anger is like a vast cloud over the planet. And of course it affects everything. It affects every human. Anger is so common on this planet, you'd seldom encounter a human that's forgotten what anger is. And anger is like, it's anger to humans is a deep discord and disturbance to the elemental being of the earth. So this is what's going on behind the scenes. Now, somebody said to me, wrote to me, this is HAARP. Now, that's ridiculous. They don't understand what's going on. If you have victim consciousness, HAARP or nature, any man-made device can victimize you. But if you had a city with no victim consciousness, they could put earthquakes, they could set off earthquakes, they could put HAARP, they could have every human device they wanted to try to kill people. If they had a consciousness that was above that, it couldn't happen. And so this is still the result of vast human, and I'm not picking on Turkey and Syria, they happen to be the place where it erupted. This is the result of vast victim consciousness that doesn't look like ending. It doesn't vaguely look like ending. People just don't get it. We sort of feel if we carry on in the dream and go on 200,000 years, and the human consciousness has hardly grown. Intellectually, we've grown more clever, and you can see what we do to the planet and to each other. A species that believes that killing each other is going to solve differences has got a serious, serious problem. And because there is no death anyway, nobody in Turkey or Syria dies, but a lot of bodies are finished. There's a mass exodus of souls from the bodies, and life will continue. They will all incarnate in various timelines. It's the tragedy is the ignorance of humanity. That, to me, is a tragedy, and it's being revealed. Sorry, I did really got caught up there.
Would you like to share your perspective on what actually happens on a metaphysical level in nature or in the earth in those instances? So
Okay.
you mentioned energetic discord. So the way that I picture this is there's the human energy field, and there's discord in that energy field, and wherever that discord frequency is the strongest or the most intense, or anywhere that interferes with the field of the planet, and where that is the strongest, that's where the field of the planet kind of reacts? Or is there some conscious decision or some, because you said the planet is a being as well, and so one of the questions would be naturally, does that being discern, or is it more like a reflex to our human energy field? Maybe you could elaborate on those kind of questions a little bit.
You mean like a dog scratching where a flea is?
Right.
Yeah, I mean that is a reflex, and that's a good question.
Yeah. Because
No,
one theory would be like this old, how sometimes I think specifically in some of the Christian traditions, they're in favor of like God's revenge, and I think some other groups also are always liking the idea of Mother Nature, wiping us off the planet. But all of these ideas imply kind of like a conscious decision of Mother Nature or God or whoever that is, saying, I've had enough, now I'll get rid of you. So I'm like wondering, is that a possibility, or is it always just an automatism?
there is no Mother Nature saying looking for retrieval or reprimand or revenge. There's no God handing out revenge. When you come as a growing soul, you reach this level of humanity. You've gone through long stages, vast time, taking on the astral body, the etheric body, and then finally happen to take on imagination, where everything you're imagining, you're creating. And so we're on a planet, which is really, quite honestly, a kindergarten planet, and that does not mean judgment and criticism. I went to a kindergarten school before I grew up. So did you. So do all of us. And so we start young, and this is for younger souls. But here we're learning creation. And creation means that now, as you're pouring yourself a drink, Sascha, as you're having a drink, you're thinking and you're creating. Every thought creates. But we have a humanity that does not realize their thoughts create. And we have, and everybody knows this, an incredibly disturbed humanity. As you're listening to me, whoever you are, how long have you been since you last got angry over anything? That doesn't make any difference. It's anger. And most people have a bit of anger every day. You have to really work at it to get rid of that. So this anger, when you multiply it by 8 billion people, or very close to that, it's like a festering wound. And if you get a festering wound in your body has got to do something about it. Otherwise, it will kill you, because it affects the whole. So a festering wound on my arm, if it's bad enough, you take the arm off and you save the body. If you don't do that, eventually the body will die, because it's all one body. And so it's a simple fact which allopathic medicine doesn't address. If one cell in your body is in distress, 50 million trillion, cells are in distress. And that's the way it is. Homeopathy and naturopathy treats the whole. Now, we are cells, if you like, to use a metaphor, we are cells in the body of the earth, of nature. We are cells. But we are cells in severe discord. So the whole of nature feels this, and all the earth, this vast elemental being. It's a conscious being, but over the last several hundred years, as the magnetic field of the earth has become lower and lower and lower, less and less, so it's more conducive to change. And as from the cosmos, there have been higher energies pouring onto Earth to begin a transformation, which has been going on for hundreds of years. The Earth and nature energy has begun to rise, let's say ascend. And all of humanity, which we're supposed to be the most intelligent and most conscious, should have been realizing this, and we begin to consciously make the choice to ascend with it, which means simple things like choosing love instead of being lost in anger, and realizing that fear doesn't exist, and living in a different way. But when you don't know who you are or why you are, and have never bothered to look, then that hasn't been happening. So the planet and the nature is lifting. Now, it's like nature and the planet are now imbued with a grey sludge energy that has like lightning strikes through it of a real deep red malignancy called chaos. But this is a very malignant chaos, and it strikes through nature and it strikes through into the earth, and it forms in the earth. You've got to imagine this as one vast globe of energy rather than solidity, and so it forms in the earth. Now the plates naturally move. That's part of the that's part of the earth's. Just the same as I'm moving my hands, the earth is in movement all the time, and that's registered. Mostly it's all completely so small a movement that we don't feel anything of it. But we're in a situation now where the 8 billion have caused a deeper disturbance than ever before in our history on this planet. Never been like this. And we've had definitely a history of earthquakes, but those earthquakes have been part of the natural movements to do with the planet. Now they're to do with us, just the same as our energy has created winds that are now known to be malevolent, winds that do damage like nothing's ever done before, winds that literally target human areas. And there's a well-known one in America, which I won't go into. And so we're creating a new phenomenon because we're creators. And our main outthrust of creation is fear, anger, rage, disturbance, chaos. And that is penetrating and affecting the energy that we call nature and the planet. And so that therefore is, which is our creation, that therefore it disturbs the natural order of the formation of the earth. So plates which could have risen, moved side by side, right up. Now science can give you all the reasons that you like for that, but nevertheless, science doesn't look at humans as anything to do with that. Whereas I know it's all connected as one and you can't disconnect it. So no, there is no retribution from nature or the planet. It is simply human energy affecting this holistic. We're having storms now, and I've seen photographs of them. There was one over the Netherlands a number of years ago. You could see this like black, malignant, malevolent energy that was once would have been called a storm. You could feel and see in the photograph, this was malevolent. This was like something. It did enormous damage. And so this is what we're getting in the air. We're getting tsunamis that are unprecedented. We're getting we're getting all that has been natural turned into unnatural violence. And then, because everything moves towards the point of creation, and so you get Turkey and Syria, which are which are being affected by what's happening in the Ukraine, what's going on there, and all this is all one hotbed in Europe, all one hotbed. And to make things even crazier, in Belgium, in the middle of cities, you've got 40 or 50-year-old nuclear sites, nuclear energy sites, which are so old, and right on the edge or in cities. And all this is happening in the earth at the same time. We are in the most vulnerable situation. In America, you have Yellowstone National Park, which is the biggest caldera in the world, which means that's where a volcano comes closest to the surface. To just give it an approximate figure, which isn't exact, is like 50 square kilometers surface as a top of a caldera. If that blew, and it's already completely unstable, if that blew, it would be like billions would die in America, and it would spread a cloud of dust over the earth that would cut out the sun, and would go into a mini ice age. And within about 12 months, those who weren't dead would wish they were. And we're in an incredibly vulnerable position, and still humanity goes blindly on creating nuclear weapons for their war. Every time there's a war, we're destabling the earth and nature, every human war. And we think we're just hurting each other, killing each other. It's one whole field of energy.
Now, in the beginning of this session, you mentioned timelines. I know that we have not really done a module or a session on timelines, and I know that we've had some requests. Maybe this is an interesting moment to throw a bit of that in. I'm beginning with a kind of strange question, maybe. Could there be a timeline in which there was no earthquake in Syria and Turkey? And what would that mean?
That not only could be, there is.
Okay.
There are many timelines that this isn't happening.
And so what does that mean to the relativity of this current timeline that we now are talking in? Or what are timelines to begin with in that concept?
Okay, a timeline, if you like to say a river is a flow of water in between two banks. A timeline is a flow of human consciousness within a certain frame of reality.
Okay, good. So
in this frame of reality, we have about 8 billion people, and we say that's it, that's the whole lot.
And can souls simultaneously be in different rivers, or can they just choose to be in one river at a time?
A soul is in one river. Well, certainly souls like we are at this stage, one river at a time.
Okay.
But that, let me just say, there's then over souls, and it becomes far more complex. But for the simplicity of this question, let's just simply say, basically, a soul is in a timeline. But if it was a highly developed oversoul, and each soul was aware of the oversoul, then there could be in multiple timelines. The oversoul could have souls in multiple timelines at the same time.
Got it. So let's say timelines are streams of energy, right? Streams of consciousness.
Yeah.
Since the way you explain it,
and just let me just add, because of the word timeline, they're not all linear.
I was just going to address this and ask a question regarding it, so thanks for bringing it up before the question. The answer was there before the question. So just because
that's what wholeness is.
Just because it says timeline, it does not suggest that there's a beginning and an end of it, and it does not suggest that it starts anywhere or ends anywhere. It's more like
the same with a linear timeline that we're on. Our 100 million years in our past is actually our future.
Have you ever heard of, I don't remember, was it called the Mandela effect? I think it was, like where some people say, they bring up some recordings or some videos or some historical documents saying person XYZ was at whatever place on the 25th of November, and you see some pictures, and then you see a recording somewhere or like some other mainstream evidence that that never happened. And so, for example, like I don't remember exactly what, there was something about the Beatles or something about Nelson Mandela having done something in one version, and then in another version he never did that. And there were people remembering exactly what happened, but then in like mainstream reality that never happened apparently. I don't remember the details. So do you think that there's a correlation between that phenomenon and what you call timelines?
Yeah, that's what I would call seepage. It's not common, but it happens.
What is
Just
that?
the same as multiple personalities in one person, where they speak a dozen languages and they're a little girl, little boy, an old grandparent, all over the place. One famous one has over 20 of them. And you say, well, what's going on? It's simply there is seepage between their incarnations of this person. And so one incarnation's got a seepage into all the others. Not common, but it happens. And when I say simply, it's not simple, but it's rare, but it happens.
So that would mean one person or one soul having a conscious experience of different timelines at once, but kind of within the same frame.
Different incarnations at once in the one moment. Same soul, having had different incarnations, and there's a seepage. Like one, it's a phenomenon, and it's not easily explained.
So, like, I'm wondering if there are these timelines, and then planet Earth exists in one timeline, and it exists in another timeline, and we can exist in one and another, and in one there can be an earthquake, and another one there can't. What is Earth? And what are we? I think it's a fair question to ask if you consider, and what's the meaning of an earthquake if it just happens in one timeline but doesn't in another, So
but as I said, in all timelines where there are humans, there is creation. And you get some humans in a higher consciousness timeline where the creation is smooth and beautiful. I visited a few, and although they would be called our future, all time occupies the same moment. It's spherical.
Because it kind of
in a greater reality, you don't have linear time.
So because it kind of suggests something along the lines of what the Indians call Maya, that it's all an illusion, right? That all of these timelines, whatever happens, earthquake, no earthquake, body, no body, war, no war, Mandela, no Mandela, it's all just a grand illusion.
It's all a grand illusion, and yet each one is its own happening reality within the framework of a greater illusion.
At the same time, it's painfully real, right?
At the same time, in other words, the question is, what is reality? And
yep.
And it's not real. I mean, there's no answer to that question.
And I think, bottom line, if you look at these answers,
the question comes out of separation, and so there is no answer.
Yeah, I guess that's the real problem, that the question arises from a separated state of being, and tries to
every question does. What we're talking about does.
Right.
Everything I'm talking is complete nonsense, but it's not nonsense in this frame of reality.
What I find fascinating is that out of these illusions can be real sparks of real growth for the soul.
Oh yeah, in this illusion we can grow very magnificently.
And probably it's comparable to having a couple board games sitting in a room, and just looking at them doesn't do anything. But if you play around a Monopoly and you really go through the anger of, oh, I wanted that street and I didn't get it, and you've done that a couple times, and now you're growing because now you don't get angry anymore over this street. So you're growing in consciousness through a game. Maybe that's comparable to all these different timelines and games we're playing on all these different things, right?
Yeah, Monopoly can teach you not to be emotionally attached to an
Exactly.
outcome.
Exactly.
And so this is what life is, a vast game of Monopoly to teach you all the lessons that we need to live our life, shall we say, choosing love. And so we take the higher levels of creation and create absolutely beautiful and wondrous states, which is all real, even within the framework of the great illusion.
So, in other words, the people who have been involved with the earthquake now in Turkey and Syria, or any other disaster for that matter, have consciously chosen as a soul to play that game because
They've
they wanted to learn.
let me not necessarily consciously chosen, soul choice. The soul has made the choice to be there for its own growth. If it was the soul was to say, hey, personality, we're living in Turkey right now, because there's going to be an earthquake, there would be such a rush out of Turkey. So the soul seldom lets the personality know the deeper level, while it has fear and anger and rage, etc. But as you lose those negatives, then the soul and the personality begin to come together in a beautiful combination of love, compassion, and wisdom, and grow together beautifully. Because I remember literally at the time, and I was a farmer in Tasmania, I basically consciously surrendered to the soul, and I said, let's live your life, because I haven't a clue what I'm doing. Now, that didn't mean no pain. I had another 20 years of pain after that. But I look back now, and it was that pain that's helped me to be the person I am. There were better paths, but that was the only one I knew, that the soul knew that this personality would respond to. And so our life path determines, as I've often said, the probability factor is it will keep unfolding in the same way. And sometimes we have an incarnation, and the one thing you need to do is break the probability of your destructive life path. And I did that this time. And others just go with your probability. Some, if you did their astrology or numerology, they don't have any karmic lessons. And so basically they're moving along smoothly. And whether they go off at a tangent or what, who knows? But their lives seem to be fairly smooth and uninterrupted. But another one, you think, how can anybody go through that? Well, the soul decided to deal with a lot in one incarnation. And the soul is not too caring what the body has to go through, because the soul is in a timeless realm and the body is in a linear realm. Linear means moment by moment. Ouch, 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 I'm hurting.
I would like to dedicate a couple more minutes to this. I know we're over a 30 minutes mark, but I'm just thinking about something right now which might be worth addressing. Earthquakes, natural disasters, tornadoes, tsunamis, whatever, being the result of discord in the human energy field. Have
Wait a
you
minute, wait a minute. Let's not assume everything is a
Not
result
everything.
of that.
Okay, not everything.
The discord enters it and makes it more violent and more disruptive
Okay,
to humanity.
okay. Have you ever seen or witnessed or heard or seen a reality in which the opposite happens, in which the human energy field um, creates has such a positive impact on nature, on the human, on planet Earth or on any other planet, that something comparable to a tsunami, but a powerfully beautiful tsunami of energy, whatever that means, happens. Maybe it's something completely out of our current framework, but maybe you want to share something like that, just as a perspective, what could possibly be.
I've never seen like humanity create a tsunami of what I have seen and written about is where we have where humanity's become nomadic, very high tech, basically like floating bubble houses that go with us, where the earth and humanity have come together in one vast cooperation,
Just
where
one
nature.
second. Just to clarify for the listeners, when you're talking about this, you're talking about a timeline that you have encountered and visited in your travels, in your metaphysical travels. Okay.
Yeah, and I think I wrote it in Through the Eyes of Love, Book 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I won't go into that because a lot of people have read it, but where nature and humanity have combined into a level of living where nature provides everything for humanity. Everything is provided. It just occurs naturally. And humanity has such a high consciousness, it blesses the earth, it blesses nature, and they bless each other. And the blessing has so much power that you see, like in a human, an illumination in that person, which gradually dies back away. But when they bless nature, like a tree, you're stopped at the end of the day, traveling and moving and being with, far more being with, far less doing too. And you'll have a tree there with all the fruit on it you need to eat. And they bless the tree, and the tree is literally glowing with this illumination of the power of the blessings. And you're watching evolution take place in these trees, and the whole of nature is that way, because humanity moves into, as we move on, becomes a great power and an enormous potential in the universe. We are an important species in the grand scheme of things, a very important species. I don't mean, therefore, everybody get a sense of self-importance, but we are an important and valued species in the overall scheme. So when you look at us, this is not all humanity. This is one timeline that's right in the throes of learning a deep and powerful lesson. There are other timelines happening where everything, as we would say in Australia, is honky-dory. It's all going beautifully. And there are some worse than this. We won't even go into them. There are some on lower levels than we are.
Now, as it is with questions, one question begets another one. But
I think we don't want to bore our listeners.
well, I think we're not, but one more last question. Do you have any, and it's kind of a funny one, do you have any idea or even knowledge of the amount of souls that humanity is comprised of?
No idea. No idea at all.
Because I remember once you mentioned we have 8 billion people, more or less, roughly, on this planet currently incarnate. But I think you said way more of humans without a body floating somewhere out there.
Well, there are some have gone beyond body. There's still many humans in the galaxy that are fifth and sixth dimensional and more before they lose the need of a physical body, because they've learned. I mean, really, a physical body is about the law of cause and effect.
Right.
So if I think bad thoughts and I put bad energy in my body, and eventually that will become malignant and kill me. If I put loving thoughts and love myself and love my body, the body thrives on it and will live longer and healthier. It's as simple as that. That's called creation.
Right.
And that's what we're here to learn. And the physical body, without a physical body, you have a job. So we're all done. They've all done physical bodies. We're doing physical body.
In other words, once that stage is reached, it's a stage of perfect mind control.
It's not. It's a state of perfect consciousness, perfect surrender, perfect beingness. There's no mind control at all. It's just a complete surrender of beingness. Mind, you see, meets your level of consciousness. So a higher consciousness, you could say, connects with a higher mind, but it isn't a higher mind. It's the same mind. There's only one mind, universal. There isn't yours and mine.
Never mind.
Never mind. But we all connect with it at a level of consciousness we are.
Okay.
It's a big picture.
Yeah, it's a beautiful big picture. No, I was just
Yeah,
getting to mind. I was just getting to mind control because here there's so much distraction and everything. So here,
oh yeah,
mind control is a very important aspect of staying focused on your path to
yeah,
not getting in sucked into that stuff. But I can also see that once you're moved out of this, you're moving
yeah.
into a space of higher consciousness. Maybe that's not
Like we need self-control, but there comes a time when self doesn't need to be controlled
right.
because self acts in a way that is harmonious in the whole. At the moment, we're a long way from harmonious in the whole.
Now, the question that this would beget, what's the difference in that stage of evolution from angels? Because you mentioned once that angels don't have their own will, they're just following divine will. And what you're describing now sounds pretty much like that.
It's getting that direction, but there's still a difference because we still have free will.
Angelic humans. We have free will, we're just voluntarily surrendering it to the divine.
But in the surrender, there is the still knowing of self that is the divine. So you're surrendering self-will to self
And we'll just
because because there's nothing outside self.
and we're just looking over at the angels going like, okay, great. We've had a little tangent here we went off on, but I think it's been an interesting conversation. And thank you, Michael. Thank you,
My
everyone
pleasure.
out
My
there,
pleasure.
for listening. If you've been with us for the past 40 minutes or whatever it was. As always, if you enjoy these conversations, make sure to subscribe, to share, to link, and to show it to your cat as well, because they want to be fed too.
Yeah. And the dog gets rid of some of his dogma.
Wonderful. See you next time.
Bye.